this two-part video, I will cover some of the basics of score study and how that leads to the interpretation that you bring to the ensemble. One of the largest responsibilities of a conductor is to bring an interpretation to the music for the performers and the audience. Sometimes that interpretation may not have to be too deep. Not all music is meant to be profound and highly artistic. Sometimes it's meant to be light, comical, entertaining, pure enjoyment for dance purposes, to underscore something. But no matter what the music is, some level of interpretation is always needed. How fast is fast? How slow is slow? How loud is loud? And how soft is soft? It may be very basic, but somebody still needs to answer those questions, and that falls to the conductor. The question then becomes, how do I form an interpretation of the music? Well, there's a combination of things that need to happen. You need to do research, you need to do score study, and then you have to apply your creativity. And the level and degree that each of those are achieved will determine the interpretation. So there's some basic questions that you need to make sure that you answer for any piece of music. 1, tempo. What will the tempo be? What will the varying tempo, the rubato, the accelerandos, the ritards, the rallentandos, just the flat out speed by which the music goes? 2, dynamics. What range will the dynamics be performed? How extreme and how dramatic are you going to make them be? Seeing a forte on the page can mean different things depending on the conductor, the performer, the style of music, the era. There's many different factors. Someone needs to answer that. That's you, the conductor. 3, style. What era does this music come from? What genre is it a part of? What style should it be played in? 4, the balance. Where is the melody? What do you need to do to make sure that that is heard by the audience? Compared to the melody, how loud will the counter melodies be? How loud will the accompaniment be? How loud will the bass lines be? The harmonies to that. How are you building these chords? In what way are you stacking the harmonies? Which notes of the harmonies are you bringing out more? What colors are you creating with the balance in the ensemble? 5, the articulations that are on the page, the things that help make the music more than just notes and rhythms. How are you going to address those? How connected is the legato actually going to be? How short is the staccato going to be? Or, a better way to put it, how separated are the notes going to be to create the staccato? How hard are you going to have the marcatos played? How heavy are the accents going to be played? Are your accents just going to be about a harder articulation, or is there going to be a length to the note? These are all the kinds of things that you're going to answer as you create your interpretation or that sound that you're trying to create. 6, what are the peaks and valleys of the music going to be? The dramatic flow. Where are the high points? Where are the low points? What are you driving towards? Where are you going to take the music so the audience feels like they're on a journey? And what are you going to do so it feels like they've resolved and they've returned home? How is that flow happening? What is the true climax of this piece of music? Are there smaller ones along the way? Are there any that come after it? How large or small is that moment? And all of the other ones leading to it and coming after it. These are the types of questions. And those are just some of 6 basic categories, but it goes a lot deeper the more profound the music is. And you need to study it and understand it well enough to be able to answer these questions. Sometimes your answer is not verbal. It's not a conscious decision. It's an interpretation of the sound and the way you'd like it to be heard by the audience, thus performed by the performer. And then as you hear the performer play the music, you're comparing what they're playing to that interpretation in your mind. In part 2 of this video, I'm going to deal with an example for you of going through this process. a little bit of a superficial level, but I'm going to give you a little bit of example with the piece of music Mother Earth by David Maslanka to kind of show you an approach of how I study and prepare my score study, my research, and then my interpretation. In the meantime, if you're enjoying this and if you're gaining anything from this video, please subscribe to my Maestro Fox YouTube channel and enjoy my other videos that are a part of my Maestro Masterclass, as well as the interviews in my Cookies and Coffee with Stephen series. With all pieces of music, you have those basic questions you need to answer. But the more profound or artistic a piece of music is, the deeper you need to go. For example, the phrasing. We've thought about where is this music going and where is the climax and are there any that are leading to it or coming after it. But what about within the phrases in between those moments? How are you going to phrase things so that it feels like something is being communicated to the audience? It's the same thing as a speaker on stage speaking monotone versus someone who uses inflection and really puts something behind what they're saying. That's what you want to do with the music. How are you going to do that? Is it going through the dynamics? How are they going to swell? How are they going to come down? Through the harmonies. Look at your harmonies and figure out where are the interesting harmonies in my piece of music and how am I going to lead to those and how am I going to resolve from those? A teacher of mine at USC, Jack Smalley, once put into very basic terms what harmony is. Harmony is tension and release. That's all it is. Every harmony falls under the category of a chord that is either leading you somewhere or a chord that is resolving from somewhere. So when you think about that, that helps with the phrasing. If the chord feels like it's leading somewhere, then you probably have not reached the peak of that phrase. If it feels like it's resolving, they're probably going to back off because you've in some way resolved. To what degree are they going to push and pull the dynamics, the tempos, the degree of emphasis on their articulations? That's where your interpretation comes into play to really get the phrasing to come to life. When you're working with a longer piece of music, a symphony, a tone poem, you have these long sections of music. You have to think about how these sections connect with each other. And not just through the way that the melodies are used or varied or the way that the harmonies relate, but through the phrasing, through the way you're going to use the dynamics and the articulations and all of these elements of music the composer has put on the page. You have to figure out how these sections relate. As you grasp these ideas, you then can really think, what is the emotion or communication message that is trying to be relayed to the listener? What are we saying with this music? You've figured out how your phrasing is working, but what does it mean? What emotion are we trying to put out there? Or if it's a storyline, where are we in the story and how does the audience need to be able to understand that? And along the way, make sure that you do your research into the composer, the era, traditional performance practices of the piece of music, the arranger, the orchestrator. If it was a commission or a dedication, learn as much as you can about everything and everyone surrounding this piece of music. When it comes to the composer, go as deep as, was this composer in the early part of their career or the late part of their career? And what does that mean? Composers, many times, their voice may change over the span of their lifetime. You might have ideas that then build on top of that. That's great. But if they're not coming from a place of building on tradition or altering from tradition and you're aware of it, if that's not the case, then it's just a mistake. You want it to be intentional. My composition teacher at Illinois State University, Dr. Roque Cordero, composer from Panama, he used to put it this way: when you're writing a piece of music, you are going to come across obstacles constantly while you're in the writing process. It's going to make you ask, why? Why is this not working? You need to understand music and the history of music to then figure out answers and make them your own, and to work around or through those obstacles that are asking why. Why? If you cannot come up with an answer that is proper, then that means your idea may not be a good, sound idea, because you need to know why everything works. And if it doesn't work according to typical music theory practices, you need to be able to answer how it's different and why you decided that. That's the degree to which he wanted to have an understanding of his own music. Well, the conductor's job is to follow in those footsteps. Ask why. Why is it the way it is? Figure out those answers. Sometimes you may not be right. Music theory is called theory because it's not proven. It's what we over hundreds of years think are the reasons that composers have chosen to do things the way that they have. In many cases, it's pretty obvious that it's true, but not always. And many composers will tell you that when they're writing music, they're not necessarily thinking about the theory behind it and how it fits into the textbook definition or doesn't, but they understand it enough so that it's a sound foundation of where they're coming from in their writing, so that there's no holes in their theory of writing that makes people believe they didn't know what they were doing. Because that's the first sign of someone who's not professional. So as the conductor, go down that path. Ask those questions why. Figure out everything you can about how that music was written, why it was written the way it was, and have your own answers based on what you believe through your research and study the composer was intending. Thank you for watching. For more great videos, subscribe to the Maestro Fox YouTube channel. To learn more about the Maestro, visit StephenAllenFox.com.